Hello everyone, and thank you so much for tuning into this video. So for today I will be redrawing this piece that I'm showing right now. This is an illustration from almost 7 years ago, or a little bit longer. I think it's not dated, so I don't exactly know how long it's been, but almost 7 years or a little bit longer. And I will be redrawing this in Clip Studio Paint. So, a little bit about the original illustration. I painted that in watercolors. I was really into watercolors at some point, and I obviously started with traditional media, but mostly I used to always work with either pencil crayons or like pencil colors and pencil sketching, those sorts of things. I wasn't really into making illustrations, I was just sketching. So, this was one of the first pieces that I finished or completed. And as I mentioned, I was really into watercolors at that time, but I really didn't have much idea about values or composition or anything. So, as you can tell, the composition of the original piece is really barren. There isn't much context to the original piece, what's happening, who this person is, or anything. And the contrast from the background to the character is also really all over the place. There's no value divide, there's like no real focal point in the entire piece. It's just there. I still love it. It's still one of my favorite pieces that I have drawn in the past. So in the original piece, there isn't really much context to the character, what she's doing, where she is, what her state of mind is. It's a little shifty. Now, of course, you can tell that maybe wherever she is, either there was some sort of battle or there will be something, right? There's one lone sword and she's just power walking. And I like it, but I like it for the time that I drew it. I don't really like it now, in the sense that I wish there was more context in the illustration itself. And I did think that her pose was just a little too generic. Like, she's just walking, that's all she's doing. And although I like it, again, but the pose I felt like I should change. Now, I didn't really want to feel too constrained with the redraw, thinking that I would have to redraw everything bit by bit, or line by line or whatever. So I did want to change around things as I saw fit that would serve the final illustration the best. So I had been thinking about redrawing one of my older artworks for quite some time. But the thing is, right, uh, earlier when I used to paint like 6, 7 years ago, when I was using traditional media, at that point, I wasn't really that good at drawing. I also wasn't really thinking too much about my drawings or the illustrations that I was making. So I wasn't really coming up with a concept. I wasn't really thinking about the end product, so to say. I basically just enjoyed painting and drawing, and so I would just paint and draw whatever I could find. So if I saw something pretty, I would draw that. And a lot of the times it was something that I maybe saw on the internet, or something that just something else. So it was always in reference with something. There are very few, I think maybe one or two artworks that I drew that are like completely mine, as in like I came up with the idea and then I ended up drawing something. And there's obviously nothing wrong with using some sort of inspiration or some sort of reference for your paintings, but there's obviously a tipping point when you can tell that this, whatever this is, it's not something that this person came up with. And I didn't really want to use something like that, like an artwork like that, for the redraw. And then apart from this, I also stopped drawing almost for like 4 years or something. And so my collection is very sparse when it comes to my own artworks, or just artworks in general. I started drawing again, I think in 2020, when I got my iPad. And I drew for like half a year, and then I stopped drawing once again. And then last year, or last year, I think it was late 2023, when I started drawing once again. And I haven't stopped after that. So that's good. But I do have quite a lot of illustrations or a lot of artworks now. So maybe I'll do a redraw of one of my like earlier digital illustrations sometime. But this, I really like this piece in particular. I don't know why. I just have a little bit of attachment to it. So I wanted to redraw this. And I do find the concept to be a little bit cool. I like the character. I like, who doesn't like the silver haired anime character? That's basically who she is. So I do like her, wanted to redraw her. Of course, my rendering style has changed quite a bit. I wouldn't necessarily say art style because I think I'm still in the process of trying to find my art style, but my rendering style, it changes a lot. Every few months, I'm basically rendering things in a different way. And that's mostly because I really love trying different techniques and different things. And if something sticks, that's great. If it doesn't, which a lot of times it doesn't because of one reason or another, I try to find a different, method or technique. So, but yes, as of right now, I'm really loving over rendering things. Or I wouldn't say over render, but really going in and rendering every single aspect of an illustration. That's basically what I have been doing. And I've really been enjoying painting metal for some reason. I hated really anything that wasn't flowy. So something like fabric or something like hair, I really love that. But for something like maybe wood or metal or just rigid textures, I just didn't really love painting them at all. And now I'm just a fan of metal. I love painting it, I love drawing it, I love looking at it. I haven't really improved all that much, I wouldn't really say, because I recently started painting metal or incorporating that into my painting. So it's not like I'm really good at it or anything. But as far as enjoyment goes, it's at 100. I love it. So I try to incorporate that. And I think that it goes well with her character as well. I mean, with the illustration, with the entire vibe of the illustration, I think it goes really well if she has some sort of armor or some just sort of like metal accessory. So with the hand, like the focal hand, that's her left, I try to accessorize it as much as possible, and also give her a sword. Originally I was planning for that to be a lot of different swords, but then I just thought that it looked a little too cluttered. Like it just, there still wasn't any like focal point in that regard, and I didn't want to render like 7 or 8 swords and then just blur them out or decrease the opacity a lot, because then I feel like it would not be as readable that there are swords, because ultimately they are opaque, so they need to be there at least. So I just scrapped that idea, because with the original one I felt like there wasn't a focal point at all. There wasn't really enough going on in the piece. I didn't want to overcorrect and then make everything too cluttered, especially with the clouds and everything happening in the background. I felt like with a lot of swords it would just be too much and just wouldn't really look that good. And at the back of her head is where I decided to incorporate like something. I don't know what that is. It's just a design, something. I was also going back and forth with what I want there, how I want for that to be. But I just came up with this. I just like scribbled it and I rendered it a little bit, added some overlay, effects and all that. It looked good. And ultimately, I was just like, okay, great. Let's just keep it. For the background, I had a light background at the very beginning, and then I switched it to a darker background. And at that time I was actually thinking of maybe adding some lightning effects or something, but I just didn't really like it all that much, especially with the dress. You'll see, I you really went back and forth with the color of a dress, because as I mentioned, I didn't want to feel constrained with the original piece and having to redo every single aspect of it. So I thought that if the red of the dress does not really match well with the rest of the illustration, there's basically no point in keeping it there, because ultimately I just want a really good looking illustration, not something that's a one-to-one redraw of the older piece. So I wanted to keep aspects of it, but not to the point where it would make the final piece just look bad or not the best. But yeah, so I went with like, I was thinking about white and then also dark blue, but then I thought if I'm going towards a darker value anyway, so let me just go with dark red. And then I mean, it still just wasn't really looking good, so I switched the background back to the lighter background that I had at the beginning, and it just kind of tied really well together with the red dress and everything. So I just decided to keep that. I'm not gonna lie, I loved the black dress the most, and it was just with me turning on the blue and the red layers, and so it obviously came out to be black. I really loved it. I wanted to keep that, but I felt like it would just take too much focus and it would just stand out far too much in the illustration, and I didn't want that to be the case. So red dress it was. So overall, for my thoughts for the older piece and the newer piece, I love them both. The older one I think is quite lovely, to be very honest. I think it almost sounds like I love that one more than the current one, but it's just one of the only pieces that I have drawn by myself and like thought of the concept and everything. So of course I like it a lot. But the redraw, I love it. It's one of my favorite illustrations of 2024. I think, yes, this was drawn in 2024. I don't really think I mentioned that. I got sick and then I could not upload this video. I'm still quite sick actually. But I didn't really want to wait that long to upload this because I mean, it's, this was a 2024 piece. So I didn't want to wait too long. But yeah, I love that. It's good. I love how everything just works so well together. I didn't plan too much out, especially with the composition. I had a general idea. For example, I wanted her to be levitating. That was one of the things. I wanted for the background to be something sky related. Either it was like late at night or early morning, like either dawn, dusk, but still up in the sky with some clouds. I knew that there was going to be a sword at the front, almost like towards the audience. And yeah, with like the way that her hair is flowing, her pose, that there's going to be some sort of decoration at the back of her head. I had all of those ideas. I didn't have every single thing, and I figured out quite a lot of things as I was going, especially with things like her dress, even the accessories around her arm. It's not really armor, but the metal accessories. Even with that, I thought of one thing, and then as the process went by, I modified it to something else. But even with the whole process, even with everything, even with not thinking of everything down to every last detail, I love how things just you know came together. Again, love that quite a bit. In total, I think this took maybe 11 or 12 hours, and I think this is the longest I've ever spent on any illustration total. And I don't have all of the process videos for this, so I can't really give you an exact time. But um, spreading it out over the week, it did take me around a week to finish. And I was actually live streaming for, I think, like a few things, maybe some metal thing, and then also with her hair and everything. I tried to live stream, but then it kept cutting off. I think because the canvas size was too large, and then it kept buffering. The stream quality was not that good, so I just decided to not do that. And then I do not record my streams actually, so I couldn't really get that footage. But regardless, I love this. Let me know which one you prefer. I know a lot of people have different preferences, so maybe a lot of people would prefer the original piece over the redrawn one. So please let me know your thoughts, what you think about both of the pieces, and any art goals that you have for 2025. This is the first video of the year. I am very excited for this year. I have a lot of things planned. I have a lot of mangas planned, one shots and whatnot. I will make videos about them as well. So at this point in the video, I'm basically just adding the final touches, like final overlay layers, whatnot, pushing the values a little bit, adding shadows, etc., etc. Just the regular stuff. But yeah, and then in a bit, you'll see the side-by-side comparison with the older piece and then the redrawn one. So that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have watched for this long. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Do consider liking the video or leaving a comment if you want. And take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.